We mentioned that it's a machlokes rishonim. When God says, Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher tzesicha me'eretz Mitzrayim, I'm the Lord your God, I am God. Is that a mitzvah, or is that just setting up the context for all the mitzvahs? So some of the rishonim explain that I am, like we mentioned, is like the teacher coming to the class and saying, hi, I'm your teacher. And now all of the students know, okay, this is the teacher, I have a context now. Everything the teacher now says, I know that I have to listen to him because he set up who he is. Which is a very good proof that Emunah is not a mitzvah, it's setting up the reality. Setting up the reality, and everything else is going to be a mitzvah. Now that you know who God is, and they explain, because it should have said believe. So they respond back. The other Rishonim, the Chinuch, the Rambam, no. Belief, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, is a mitzvah. It is a mitzvah unto itself. When the Torah says, I am God, God is commanding you to do something. Now you might say, how is that? It just says, I am God.
It is.
So why is I am God not like the comparison to the teacher? Coming into class and saying, I'm your teacher.
Because being a teacher is only a part of what the person is, not its entirety. While when Hashem says, Ani Hashem, that literally says, I'm everything, and he uses the I was, I am, and I will be, like, name when he says it.
Okay, very good. That's true. When your teacher comes in the class and says, hi everyone, I'm the teacher for today.
Also
does it take a lot of Emunah to believe that person is your teacher? You know, forgetting conspiracy theories, that person is actually there. No, you see them there in front of you. It's clear who they are. But when it comes to Anochi Hashem Elokecha, I am God, do we see God? Is God physical? No, God is not physical. So there, the very belief is there's a mitzvah now to use conceptual logic, rational thinking to arrive at that truth. That itself is a mitzvah. Now, it's important to realize, the Sfarim speak out, that was the Mount Sinai experience a vacuum? Meaning that all of a sudden the Jewish people just opened their eyes one day and God was speaking to them from Mount Sinai? Like we just woke up like, oh, what are we doing today? And we just had the Sinai experience?
It was like a 13-month process.
It was an entire process. Let's go all the way back to Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, going down to Egypt, going through the Kur HaBarzel, 210 years of very challenging labor, of crying out to God, of yearning to be brought out and having the promise of Abraham delivered. And God listening to our cries. God bringing makas, us seeing that God's hand, etz belokimhi, seeing the disengagement and the disassembly of the entire ancient Egyptian culture, coming out of Egypt, having the Kriyas Yamsuf, the splitting of the sea, and journeying to Mount Sinai, and the pinnacle, the zenith of that experience is God revealed himself, and everybody saw God. Anochi Hashem Elokecha. By the way, our tradition teaches us that our souls popped out of our body at that moment because we met absolute spirituality. So absolute spirituality could not interface with physicality at that point. We had to be resurrected. That happened 2 times. That was the first 2 of the mitzvahs. So the Rambam and the Chinuch say the mitzvah is essentially getting you back to the state that you know the existence of God like the way we stood at Mount Sinai. And that's pretty awesome. Imagine every day to live that way. The tzaddikim live this way. And that's why the Rambam says that Leida is the first mitzvah, to know God. Now, what's the difference between knowledge and belief?
Knowledge, you need to have a proof, fact, and belief. You may have some indications, but you don't need to actually have evidence.
Is belief blind?
Somewhat.
Debatable.
So I want to present that we don't believe in blind faith. That our belief is based on information, is based on evidence. If, I heard of Gav give this example, if you see everybody walking in with umbrellas and they're all wet, do you know that it's raining or you believe that it's raining?
Believe.
Now, is that an educated belief? Yeah, everyone's walking in. There's evidence. You didn't go outside. You never saw the rain yourself. I always like this one. This is a famous one. Anybody, does China exist? You know? How do you know?
We have one of the students is that you're from China. So he says he's from there.
Maybe he made it up.
I've been there.
So that was the only thing that I was waiting for. You've actually been there?
Yes.
Does anybody, does Antarctica exist? Anybody been to Antarctica? Not yet. Okay, Antarctica. Okay, does Antarctica exist?
Yes.
Theoretically.
Let's go back to China. It's just so much easier. Besides the one person that's been there. Maybe you're lying. Well, so you might know, but how do I know? You ever lied in your life?
Yes.
Oh, okay, maybe that. You say, but doesn't everything say made in China? Not? So what? Maybe it was made in, who knows where. Say, I see television. But television never lied. So, I do believe it exists, even though I personally have not been there. Because that's called belief, though. I don't know. I wasn't in China. I don't know. But I have enough evidence that I believe in something. Then there's something called you know. You arrive at that with absolute clarity. Rabbi Noach used to call it 5-finger clarity. The Rambam wants you to get to a level that you know God beyond belief. Belief is all of the evidence that leads you to 99%, and then the Rambam says you could even take it further. And the Chinuch goes into that and says there's ways that you can know God. That you could know God. There's many, many elements to that. So belief being, you have a lot of evidence, and then knowing is all the way. There's another way to understand knowing, because some say that how could you know? How could a finite being know an infinite God? Wouldn't that be limiting God? You hear that approach? So they say that leida doesn't have to mean know, it means connection. Because we see that in the Torah, das, when Adam and Eve are together, and it says that Adam knew Eve, didn't mean that he just knew her like they were, I know this is my wife and she's not an imposter. It means that they were intimate, they were bonded together. That there's something in Kabbalah called das elyon. That means there's a higher level of knowledge. Not knowledge through proving, but knowledge of absolute knowing, which is, by the way, what you get to on Purim. That's why one of the most logical things that a Jew does is that we have 99% fact of God's existence, but we're also sober enough to realize that you can't prove an infinite God with your finite thought systems. So you need one day out of the year, which is a day that you leave behind all of your brain and all of your logical systems, and you go above your logical systems. And that's why it's the holiest day of the year. But it's only Purim because you had 364 days of logical. That's why Purim's the funniest day. It's the most un-Jewish day from the surface. Now, rabbis are like really sober. You guys ever notice that? Like they're really, methodical and logical and, well thought out and not into doing like excessive drinking. Really, I mean that. But I know that we're really not. We're really not. And all of a sudden on Purim, like what happens? The answer is we're sober enough to realize that you need a day like Purim to go ad the lo yada, beyond das tachtoin to das elyon. You need to go to a higher level of just etzem connection. That's another way to understand leida. Generally, the Rambam's talking about the pashat, leida. of using philosophical proofs. The main philosophical proof that the Rambam uses, that a person that says that a person can get there, the Chovos HaLevavos uses this as well, which we mentioned before, is first existence, first cause. Okay, anyone remember this one? Where did the world come from, Asher?
Soup.
Where did the soup come from?
We don't know.
So,
But we know.
so it's true, we know, God, and it wasn't a soup. It was Bereshis Bara Elokim. So even all the evolutionary theories never answer that question with the first cause, the first existence. Because you came from your mother? Yeah? You believe that?
Yes.
Not a conspiracy theory.
Maybe.
So you could choose to live like that. You could choose to live like that, like you never know. Like maybe I didn't. But we tell that person, nobody lives that way. When you want to have a surgery, you don't, pick a random guy on the street to do the surgery. You use your brain, you make logical decisions. He has good references. He has credibility. He's done 1,000, surgeries before. We use our brain. So why don't we use our brain for the big questions of life? Like, where did existence come from? Is there a world to come? Do I have a soul? Do my actions matter? So here we say, where did the world come from? Your mother's mother's mother. So you came from your mother's 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 mother's. How many mothers were there? So you want to tell me that there was always mothers? You think so? Sounds good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I want to present to you that that's a contradiction. You can't have mothers that went on forever. Why not?
This was the first mother.
There was never a first mother. Argue with me.
Okay. So if you keep going in perpetuity, like you have a mother who gave birth and then
Yes, yes.
you retrace that back.
What comes first?
Why can't they all go on? But why can't there be mothers forever? Why can't there just be mothers forever?
Because where does the first mother come from?
Why does that have to be a first?
Because a mother had to give birth to a mother.
No, but there was always mothers from the beginning of time. So there was no beginning. That's the exact point. There was always mothers. Yes, Yankov.
How do you have an end then? If there was no beginning,
Oh,
it was
so we're
on
saying-
forever, then how would there ever be an end?
That
Also,
So there's just mothers.
There's just mothers
There's
all the
mothers.
way
So
up.
we're saying that
You
five
guys,
mothers were
did
there.
you guys ever have textbooks growing up that's a timeline that says, you are here, and then on either side there was an infinity symbol going in either direction?
Yeah.
Is that illogical?
No, because like.
Why is it illogical?
Because to go back to the mother example, we're saying that we have had finite mothers infinitely.
So say it strong.
Saying that our finite existence has been here forever, meaning it's an infinite finite existence.
So is infinite and finite a contradiction?
Yes.
Yes, because
they're-
finite means that there's definition, infinite means there's no definition. How do you have an infinite amount of anything that's defined? The answer is you can't. That's a contradiction, logically. So you'll tell me, how do you know anything, Rabbi? Okay, you could choose a position like that. You could, but I tell you, when you decide to cross the road, you make logical decision, you see if the car is coming, you check out the velocity. You use logical systems. When you decide to cross a bridge, you believe that it's probably not made out of Play-Doh, and you actually go across it. And even though that you've heard of bridges collapsing in the history of the world, you make a logical calculation that probably this one will not, based on statistics. So why all of a sudden, when it comes to the big questions in life, you pull the how do you know anything, Rabbi? I'll tell you why. You're Baal Taiva. That's why. Just simply put, that's usually what it comes down to, especially nowadays. You just don't want to change your lifestyle. But if you're intellectually honest and you think, yeah, you're right, that's a very compelling thing to think about. How do you have an infinite number of finite things? You can't, because you can't have inside of infinite finite points. That would preclude it being infinite. And therefore, what do you have to say? That there was a beginning to the finite. What began it? Something above finite. Something bigger than the system had to start finite. That's called infinite. So then you logically arrive at infinite is the logical existence. Okay? Infinite is the logical existence.
Talking about God then?
I didn't say God. I'm saying infinite. You want to be religious on me? Fine. I was just going to use logical systems without being all religious here. Okay, yes, I'm talking about God. If you prefer to call God infinite, I'm okay with that. That's one of the main logical systems that the Rambam uses to arrive at God's existence being clear, being necessary, that infinite is necessary. The Chovos HaLevavos goes with this. Now, people who might not be able to have the fineness of thought to appreciate this. So there's other ways to arrive at that. But this is very, very strong. And the Rambam felt that's Leida. You could know this. You could know God. The next feature is that God who gave us the whole world, well, He's the existence of the world. He's existence because infinite is the logical existence. Is now, but there's a world. So how do we have a connection? Is there a communication and a purpose to this world? When God was bored, what's the purpose to the world? So for that we have national revelation. We have the Mount Sinai experience. And this is also very rational. This is all part of Emunah, by the way. I was going to read today from the Sefer Chinuch. It's all in the mitzvah of Emunah. What is the line of Emunah in the Torah? I took you out of Egypt. And that means the entire process leading to Sinai. Leaving Egypt was only to get to Sinai. It wasn't about leaving Egypt to go to Dizengoff Square and just party and hit each other with boppers. It was about getting, or Uganda. It was about getting, you understand what I'm saying? It was about getting the Torah. There was a purpose. The feature of Emunah is purposeful creation. So what's the purpose? So God revealed that at Mount Sinai. How do you know Mount Sinai exists? Happened. Maybe Moses was high on mushrooms. And he made the whole thing up. How do you know?
Because all the Jews were there.
So tomorrow we're going to get more into that. Very, very important that we have that very, very clear. It's so strong. It's so strong. Yes?
No, that's exactly the same thing that in my first class here that you said. It's the very same topic.
The one.
The mushrooms.
So what? Yeah.
No, you already went through that before. Didn't you?
So it was mushrooms. It actually happened.
It was the thing that it was mushrooms. No way that everyone had the same vision.
So okay, that's one answer that I believe that it was certainly not mushrooms, because try to get two people in a room on psychedelics, they're not having the same trip. Let alone 600,000 or 3 million men, women, and children. But moreover, how do you start a lie? How do you start a lie that happened? That you convince people that something happened that really didn't. How do you fabricate?
How do you convince people that something happened to them when
That's
they
right.
experience it?
That's right.
Is there a proof that it wasn't a psychedelic experience?
So one proof is it better? What's stronger, to start a religion that one person had a vision, as to the authenticity of it?
Wasn't it the story I was told that it could have been an acacia tree, which is
So yeah,
psychedelic substance.
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of acacia.
Big enough to cover the whole.
Enough
3 million people.
enough to go around, like they say.
Enough to go around.
So if that was the case, let me just ask you a preface question. What is stronger, to start a religion where I tell you that this amazing thing happened to me, and either you believe me or not, or I'm charismatic enough that you go along with it, or I come here and I tell you, by the way, all of you guys, you had a dream last night that I was the Messiah.
It's easier to
Saying that you.
Imagine I could pull that off. Imagine I was in a stadium with 3 million people. That's a big stadium. So what would be the first thing that everyone would do?
It's like, I didn't even sleep.
Did that happen to you? Did that happen to you? Did that happen to you? I'm asking you guys right now. You all heard God say that I'm Mashiach. You believe me?
It seems to be very convincing. Every single one saw the same thing.
No, but you're.
I'm asking you right now. Do you believe me?
No, he's saying that you saw a dream last night that he's Mashiach.
And everyone.
Yeah. Did you?
I'm telling you right now. You had a dream last night. God came to you.
Mm-hmm. And then
Do you believe me?
Then I went out checked with everyone had the same thing.
No, but they
I don't care about it. Did you have that?
If I had.
I don't know if you did. I'm just telling you that. Did you have that?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Did you?
No.
Okay, fine. Okay. So far, maybe one wacko until your wife's like, "You didn't have such a dream. Get out of there." So it's impossible. You can't pull off such a lie. But imagine you could. That would be a very strong religion. Someone tell me they started a religion in some campus, spaghetti and meatball or something? The spaghetti and meatball religion? Oh yeah, something like that. Whatever. I wonder. You tell me. Well, the Torah says no one's ever going to try this. I'm sure they didn't come and say, God spoke to you all and said the new religion is spaghetti and meatballs. No, they just said, I had this vision. I don't even know about it, but I know enough that it wasn't that you all. It was the same classic, I had a vision of spaghetti and meatballs.
I think it was intended from the beginning as a satirical thing. Like I don't think anybody even pretend it was meant to make fun of religion. They didn't even try to, maybe as part of the satire they had some story that they made up. But I think it was intended from the beginning.
It was intended to deliberately be a lie the entire time.
Yeah.
But even if you tell me that they started to go along with it, and they're starting to spaghetti and meatball, and then there creates mythology around spaghetti and meatballs. But never the story was, you all heard God tell you that spaghetti and meatballs is a whole thing. You just have to pay me like $99.99 a month into my Venmo account and because you can't pull off such a lie. You cannot pull off a lie like that. So we're going to talk more about this tomorrow,
It's also one
my
of the
friends.
promises, right?
But what's that?
It's also one of the promises that never would happen.
That's right. And if it could be pulled off naturally, why didn't any other religion try this? Okay, we're going to talk more about this tomorrow. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a good day.
Okay.